Jack had been to many strange worlds, met countless alien species, and survived situations most humans couldn't imagine. Yet as his shuttle landed on the remote planet of Virelia, he felt a strange tension in his chest. He was sent as part of a research delegation, tasked with assisting the local population in ways that seemed simple on paper, but complicated in reality. Among the tasks was bonding with a young Virelian girl named Lyra, an assignment Jack found uncomfortable. When he first saw her, she was sitting alone by a crystal-clear pool, her limbs moving slowly. She was smaller than most of her species, and her movements were awkward. Jack had heard whispers from the delegation about her disability. Others had dismissed her as weak, incapable of performing the customs that Virelians valued. Jack was honest with himself. He didn't feel ready to be responsible for her. The word bonding was misleading. He saw it as a task, something forced by alien tradition rather than a choice of heart. Lyra's eyes lifted toward him as the shuttle doors hissed closed. She studied him quietly, her violet irises wide with curiosity yet cautious. She didn't speak immediately, letting the soft hum of the pool fill the silence. Jack swallowed hard. She looked fragile, and he felt a strange mixture of pity and awkwardness. "You're Jack," she said finally, her voice barely louder than a whisper. It was soft, melodic, and carried a subtle strength he didn't expect. "I was told you would be my guide." Jack nodded. Yes, I'll help you." His voice sounded harsher than intended. Lyra didn't flinch. She merely tilted her head and nodded in return. Over the next few hours, Jack observed her as she moved about the small training area assigned to her. Lyra's disability slowed her, but it didn't stop her. Every movement was deliberate, carefully calculated. Her balance might have been off, but her mind was sharp. Jack found himself watching her more closely than he should, noticing the way she adapted her surroundings, the way she anticipated challenges before they arose. It was fascinating. Yet, despite her abilities, Jack felt a wall inside him. He didn't want to bond with her. He didn't want to see her as anything other than a duty. That feeling sat uncomfortably in his chest as the sun dipped below the jagged horizon, painting the alien sky in hues of deep orange and violet. The next morning, Jack was called to the healing pools. Virelians bathed in these pools, a custom that allowed them to restore their strength. Jack had been told that Lyra would bathe there alone, as was tradition. He reluctantly followed, intending only to check the facility and ensure everything was safe. Lyra was already there. Steam rose from the water, curling into the cool morning air. She moved carefully, her form reflecting in the rippling surface. Jack stopped at the edge, unsure whether to speak. He wasn't supposed to intrude, yet he couldn't look away. For a long moment she seemed completely unaware of him, absorbed in her routine. Jack's initial feelings of discomfort shifted slightly as he noticed the grace in her movements despite her challenges. There was resilience in her every motion, a quiet strength he hadn't expected. He realized then that he had judged her too quickly. She wasn't weak. She had been underestimated, dismissed by others because of what they couldn't see. But he could see it now. Her intelligence, her patience, her determination. Jack felt a twinge of guilt. How could he have been so blind? Days passed, and Jack began to spend more time with Lyra. He helped her navigate areas that were difficult for her, taught her small techniques to manage her balance, and even shared meals with her. Lyra, in turn, began to open up. She spoke of her favorite things, glimmering flowers that grew near the crystal pools, stories of her ancestors, and the way the stars reflected off the pools at night. Jack listened, genuinely intrigued. Slowly, his wall of reluctance began to crumble. He wasn't thinking of bonding in the way the delegation meant. He was thinking about respect, friendship, and understanding. Lyra's disability was no longer a barrier in his mind. It was a part of who she was, but not the part that defined her entirely. One afternoon, an unexpected situation tested them both. A young Virelian child had wandered near the edge of a jagged cliff. Lyra spotted the child first, her keen eyes narrowing in alarm. Without hesitation, she moved carefully toward the edge, assessing the safest path. Jack followed quickly, helping her where he could. Together, they guided the child back to safety. Jack felt something shift inside him during that moment. He hadn't only seen her strength. He had felt it. Lyra's calmness under pressure, her careful attention to detail, her courage despite her limitations. It all left a mark on him. He realized that what he initially perceived as weakness was actually a different kind of strength, one that required patience, intelligence, and an unyielding heart. That evening, they sat by the pool, the twin moons of Virelia reflecting in the water. Lyra smiled faintly, her eyes soft but full of quiet pride. Jack wanted to say something, but he didn't know what. Words felt small compared to what he was feeling. He simply nodded, acknowledging her courage without needing to speak it. In the days that followed, Jack found himself watching her not with judgment or obligation, but with admiration. He saw the humor in her shy smiles, the cleverness in the solutions she found to everyday problems, and the bravery she displayed in situations that would have frightened even the strongest Virelians. One night, as he returned from his quarters, Jack paused at the edge of the healing pool once more. Lyra was there preparing for her nightly routine. Steam rose around her, and for a moment she seemed almost ethereal in the soft light. Jack felt an unfamiliar warmth in his chest, not desire, not obligation, but respect and a deep human connection. He realized he had been wrong to think of her as someone he simply had to guide. She had already guided him without knowing it, showing him a new perspective on courage and value. Jack left her then, stepping back into the cool night air. The stars above were brilliant and countless, each one reflecting possibilities he hadn't considered before. Lyra's presence, her resilience, her quiet strength. They were all reminders that humanity and all sentient beings could underestimate potential too easily. The first part of his journey on Virelia ended not with conquest or duty fulfilled, but with understanding. Jack knew that the next challenge would come soon, perhaps a test from the Virelian Council, perhaps a natural disaster or a cultural trial. But he no longer faced it with reluctance or fear. He faced it with respect, empathy, and a recognition of true strength in others and in himself. As he lay in his quarters, Jack thought of Lyra. Her disability was just one small part of her. What truly mattered was her courage, her cleverness, her heart. And for the first time since arriving on Virelia, he felt he was ready to face whatever came next. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to, guided by admiration for a young alien who had taught him what it really meant to be strong. Jack closed his eyes that night, not as a man bound by duty, but as someone beginning to see the universe and its beings in a richer, deeper light. The next morning, the sky over Virelia was painted in pale shades of pink and gold. Jack rose early, the events of the previous days lingering in his mind. He knew that his connection with Lyra had changed him, and he felt a sense of purpose he hadn't expected. Today they were to begin a new task, assisting in the maintenance of the Virelian settlements, a job that seemed simple but required careful attention to detail. Lyra was already waiting by the edge of the crystalline pool, her eyes scanning the horizon. Jack noticed how steady she was, her movements slower than others but precise, deliberate. He admired her patience. She smiled faintly as he approached, a small acknowledgement of the bond that had grown between them over the past week. "Good morning, Jack," she said softly. "Morning, Lyra," he replied. He realized that he felt comfortable speaking to her now without awkwardness or hesitation. "Are you ready for today?" She nodded. "Yes, let's go." They moved through the settlement, walking past towering structures of shimmering metal and glass. The Virelians had a unique way of blending technology with nature, creating buildings that seemed alive, reflecting light and adapting to their surroundings. Jack had always admired alien architecture, but here, it felt almost magical. Their first task was simple, repairing energy conduits that powered part of the settlement. Jack expected it to be straightforward, but it quickly became clear that it would require more than just technical skill. The conduits were damaged in a recent storm, twisted and partially submerged in water. Jack began working immediately, but he realized that without Lyra's careful observation, they would miss subtle damages that could cause failure later. "Over here," Lyra said, pointing to a section that Jack hadn't noticed. Her finger hovered above a crack in the conduit, and he realized how sharp her senses were. He knelt and inspected the damage, impressed. "You're right," he admitted. "I would have missed this." She shrugged lightly, almost shyly. "I've had to notice things carefully for a long time." Jack felt a wave of respect for her. Her disability had made her life challenging, But it had also sharpened her awareness, giving her strengths that others lacked. He realized that he had been wrong to think of her as weak. As they worked, a distant rumble shook the ground. Jack looked up, alarmed. A storm was forming faster than expected. Dark clouds twisted unnaturally and the wind picked up, carrying a strange metallic scent. "Jack, we need to move," Lyra called, her voice steady despite the growing danger. They ran toward the main settlement, but as they neared, they saw a group of young Varelians trapped near a collapsing platform. The wind howled and debris flew dangerously around them. Jack's heart raced. He could see the panic in the children's eyes, and Lyra's calm, focused expression reminded him that they could not hesitate. "Follow me," Lyra said. She moved carefully, guiding the children toward a safer path. Jack ran alongside her, helping lift debris and steady the younger ones. Her movements were slower, but her mind worked quickly, calculating every step, every possible danger. They reached a narrow bridge leading to safety, but one of the younger Varelians, a boy no older than 10, froze in fear. Jack knelt beside him. "You can do this," he said gently. "Just follow us. We'll keep you safe." The boy nodded, trembling, and Jack placed a protective hand on his back. Lyra led the way, moving slowly but steadily. Jack stayed close, guiding the others, shielding them from flying debris. The storm roared around them, but the trio of humans and Varelians moved with a strange, coordinated rhythm. Finally, they reached a solid platform. The children hugged each other, and Jack breathed a sigh of relief. Lyra's face was calm, but he could see the strain in her eyes. He approached her. "You were amazing," he said. "I don't know what I would have done without you." She gave him a small smile. "We did it together." That night the storm passed, leaving a quiet stillness over the settlement. Jack and Lyra walked along the pools, the twin moons reflecting in the water. Jack realized that he had never felt closer to anyone, human or alien. The events of the day had changed him, showing him the value of trust, patience, and courage. "You know," Jack said, breaking the silence, "I was wrong about a lot of things when I first came here." Lyra tilted her head. "About me?" Jack nodded. "About you, about what I thought I knew. About what strength really is. I didn't understand. I see it now." Lyra looked at him, her violet eyes soft but shining with something he couldn't name. "I'm glad you see it." Over the following weeks, Jack continued to work closely with Lyra. They repaired damaged areas, helped the younger Varelians, and explored the surrounding forest to collect materials. Each day he learned more about her resilience and ingenuity. She had a way of seeing solutions where he saw only problems, and her courage inspired him to be better, to think more carefully and to act with empathy. One day, the Varelian Council called them for a special meeting. Jack didn't know what to expect. He followed Lyra into a large chamber, filled with shimmering lights and alien symbols. The council members regarded them silently, their expressions unreadable. A senior member spoke. "Jack of Earth, Lyra of Varelia, you have shown remarkable courage and cooperation in recent trials. Your actions have not only protected our young, but have demonstrated the values we cherish most. We recognize that your bond is not born of obligation, but of respect, understanding, and courage." Jack felt a warmth in his chest. The council had acknowledged something more than duty. They recognized the human strength of empathy, the ability to see value in others, and rise to challenges together. Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady. "We have faced danger together. We have learned from each other. I am proud of what we have accomplished." Jack looked at her, admiration shining in his eyes. "And I'm proud of you, Lyra. You've taught me more than you know." The council nodded in approval. "Then it is settled. Your bond is honored, not by tradition alone, but by the merit of your actions. You are equals in courage, in judgment, and in spirit." As they left the chamber, Jack and Lyra walked side by side. The twin moons shone above, casting soft light over the pools and forests. Jack realized that he no longer saw Lyra as someone he had to guide. She was his partner in thought, in action, and courage. They had proven that true strength comes not from perfection, but from perseverance, intelligence, and heart. Over time, their bond became stronger, not because of expectation, but because of shared experience. Jack learned to listen, to notice, and to value qualities he might have overlooked in others. Lyra, in turn, trusted him, respected him, and relied on his support. Together they explored the limits of what was possible, blending human ingenuity with Varelian wisdom. One evening, as they rested by the pools after a long day of work, Jack reflected on his journey. He had arrived expecting duty, obligation, and discomfort. What he found was friendship, respect, and admiration. Lyra had not only survived her challenges, but had shown him the true meaning of strength. The stars above seemed brighter that night, more countless and infinite than ever before. Jack realized that humanity's greatest gift was not technology, or strength or conquest, but the ability to recognize value, to understand and to act with courage and empathy. Lyra looked at him and smiled, the soft expression carrying confidence, pride, and trust. Jack smiled back, understanding fully that their bond was something rare, forged through challenge, mutual respect, and the recognition of true strength. The story of Jack and Lyra was not just about survival on a strange world, but about growth, understanding, and the power of seeing beyond appearances. It was a testament to humanity's ability to rise above bias, to connect with others, and to find courage in the most unexpected places. Jack knew that challenges would continue to come. Storms would return, trials would test them, but he also knew that together, he and Lyra could face anything, not because of obligation, not because of duty, but because of the bond they had built through respect, courage, and shared experience. As the twin moons reflected in the pool, Jack and Lyra sat quietly, watching the light dance across the water. He understood now that strength was not always obvious, that courage could be quiet, and that the heart's capacity to admire and trust was one of humanity's greatest powers. Jack smiled faintly, feeling a peace he had never known before. In Lyra, he had found more than a companion. He had found inspiration, resilience, and the quiet, enduring proof that true strength lies not in perfection but in courage, heart, and understanding. And under the endless stars of Virelia, their journey together had only just begun.